I have to say, I love me some Jordy P. I've listened to his lectures. I even read his first book. I think he nails it like 80% of the time, but there's that 20% that just pisses me off about his love for Big Five and his dismissal of MBTI. We have to understand, first and foremost, Jordy P is an academic. Academia, including those like Adam Grant, are bought into the Big Five as the only psychometric tool that works due to its high levels of validity and reliability. Jordy P in the echo chamber of academia, they always circle the wagons around the Big Five. Now, so I want to do a very short video breaking down some of his points, but I'm going to warn you up front. Like, I'm not taking any scientific angle of arguing for validation, test-retest, R-factor analysis, or Chronbach alpha, anything like that. Literally, nobody cares about this except for academics. Once you learn the cognitive functions and even go deeper than that, you can type yourself perfectly without needing a validated tool.
And the Myers-Briggs has zero predictive utility with regards to performance prediction.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't try to do that. It doesn't say that it does that. So right off the bat, it's a straw man. He's attacking something that Myers-Briggs has never said it's going to predict behavior.
So why do people use it? Oh, here's one reason. It doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. Everybody wins, right? And so then you think, well, do corporations really care whether or not everybody wins when they're being tested? And the answer to that is yes, much more often than you would think. So we hit all sorts of barriers. That was one. The problem with tests that work is that most of the people who take them don't do very well on them.
The problem with tests that work is that the people who take them don't do well on them. They don't do well as in they don't properly take it correctly, or they don't understand it, or they don't get the right answers. That's kind of a really bad way to describe it. These tests are so good and they work, but no one knows how to actually do them correctly. Interesting take. To me, this is like a non-argument or even pretty incoherent.
And then the other problem is that people aren't good at statistical reasoning at all. They're really, really bad at it. And so, for example, they don't know the difference between a percentage and a percentage.
It's old. It isn't psychometrically valid.
Old and not psychometrically valid. Being old is irrelevant, especially in terms of evaluating the psyche. We've tried to evaluate the psyche and personality since the beginning of time. So to say that it's old is just elitist and does not actually sounds like a good argument. It's like, oh, that's old school, thus the new school is better. Not a good argument.
It wasn't derived by factor analytic techniques. It should be replaced by the Big Five or the Big Five aspect scale, which you can use if you go to understandmyself.com. We've put it online for people to use and to generate a personality report. Myers and Briggs attempted to make a questionnaire predicated on Jungian presuppositions, and perhaps they did a fine job for the 1930s.
Fine job for the 1930s. What is this garbage? Yeah, calculus was good for the 1700s, but now it's defunct. Like, this is the argument that I make. Like, what is so special about it now? And he goes on to say that, like, there's tools now we can really dig into the analysis behind personality questionnaires. But to say that the 1930s, like, we're so much smarter now. Like, this is both an elitist and an appeal to authority take. It's part of that classic view that at this point in time, we've never been smarter than we are now. And thus, we don't even build on the stuff that was created before. Like, we throw that out and we create something new because we're the smartest humanity's ever been.
But that was a long time ago, and there weren't any powerful computational devices of the kind that were necessary to sort out the structure of personality properly, which we've managed to do since about 1960 onward. So now, the Myers-Briggs is a perfectly useful tool if what you want to do is get people to talk about the fact that there are individual differences in personality. And corporations love it because no one gets offended by it because everyone wins.
He loves this line. He says it all the time, everyone wins. It's his favorite, like, throwaway line to kind of dismiss it. Like, hey, it doesn't say anything bad about you. It's great. It's wrong. It's trite. And he doesn't elaborate on it. So everyone in the type community can definitely agree that it's overtly positive. And more than just the MBTI official corporation test is the 16 personalities assessment, which, yes, it does overly come across as every type is overly positive, whereas Jung was basically saying that there's all these complexes you're going to have, and there's all these negative traits about you, and there's a little bit positive there. But when you look at even the step 1 and step 2, step 3 from the official assessment, there's weaknesses, there's blind spots, there's problems in relationships, there's problems in management, there's all these problems that they bring up. So there's definitely like good and negative brought up. This is sort of I don't know if he bothered to ever take the MBTI and read through it in the official work, or if he's just like purposely doesn't want to do it so he can make his argument sound better.
But if you want a personality test that actually tells you who you are, that's valid and reliable.
Tell you who you are. Use the big 5. You know what, Jordy? Okay, you got me. You're right. I scored a 90 on neuroticism, so I'm emotionally unstable. That's great. Cool. I'm self-diagnosed now. Let me book a session with you. I mean, really, the big 5 pathologizes people. Like, no one wants to be neurotic, because now we're basically saying that we're emotionally unstable. When anything good or bad happens to us, we react in a less than favorable manner. Like, I guess I could tell you who you are, but there's a marketing issue there. And if you talk to anyone about MBTI, I think they're going to say like, yeah, that told me who I was just as much as a big 5. You can't go with big 5. You can't say, oh, you know what? I scored just a little bit over extroversion, and that, like, there's no classification there. I'm a 52 extroversion. What does that do for the scale? It doesn't help.
Then you use the big 5, and that's that. And so I would say the Myers-Briggs should be relegated to the dustbins of the past, because it's a defunct and archaic instrument, and it's no longer properly valid.
The big 5 portrays itself as being a deep dive into personality, but it has nowhere near the depth of cognitive functions or the function hierarchy in the Jungian model. For example, being high in extroversion means excitability, sociability, talkativeness, assertiveness, and high amounts of emotional expressiveness. So people who are high in extroversion are outgoing and tend to gain energy in social situations. Being around other people helps them feel energized and excited. But here's the thing, it doesn't tell you how your extroversion is used, which MBTI does. A cursory look at the cognitive functions will say that there's 4 types of introversion, 4 types of extroversion, and they're used in many different ways. So do you think that an ENTJ, extroverted type, would be emotionally expressive? See, if Jung defined extroversion, he defined it, then big 5 does not get to redefine what extroversion means and say it's something like emotional expressiveness, because you can find a lot of extroverts that have very little emotional expressiveness. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon fallacy and say that because more people talk about or create content or make memes about or know more about their MBTI than they do about big 5, that's evidence because the crowd likes it. Like, I'm always very skeptical of what is popular. But I'm going to draw from personal experience and say that as an MBTI coach, 100% of my clients have never cared about statistical validity or factor analysis or any psychometric evidence that MBTI is valid. When a tool is able to articulate you to yourself in a way that has a profound life-changing impact, it works. I've met some people that are really into astrology lately, and they are all about it. And I would go, oh, is there any science behind that? I would kind of like think about how someone like Adam Grant or Jordy P would talk about it, and they would be like, where's the science behind it? It's like, it doesn't matter if there's science behind it necessarily, because if it aligns with you and it helps you grow, then it is good. It is good and useful. So I will give them a little bit of slack, because when you attack the corporate standard model, like what you would go on MBTI or the Myers-Briggs Foundation and take the step 1 or step 2, it's easy to attack because it doesn't talk about the cognitive functions in the way that most in the Jungian community do. When you get to that step, you can easily see the distinction and the depth of MBTI versus big 5. I said, if you were to put big 5 and MBTI like head to head from the just the standard corporate test, you might be able to attack it a little bit better. It's a technically truthful attack vector, but it's missing a gigantic ocean. See what I did there? Of information that he either willfully or thoughtlessly neglected. So I want to know what you all think about this video, and then if you've seen some of Jordan Peterson's lectures or his critiques or Adam Grant's critiques of MBTI, and do you think that they're valid? Do you think that they're, like me, I think they're willfully ignorant of certain parts of it, as to say like, well, I didn't know that exists, so I didn't do my research there, but I'm going to attack this small part of it that's like really sort of, I forgot what logical fallacy it is, but it's one of those where it's like you're appealing to like the ignorance. So I didn't know that existed, so you're still wrong. So Jordy, I love you. Good stuff. I love all your videos, but you've got it wrong on MBTI.